All right, hello once again. Jeff Scott at Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been going over and creating a series of video presentations based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm coming to the end of the JavaScript section, and we're talking about client-side web APIs and here manipulating documents. When writing web pages and apps, one of the most common things you'll want to do is manipulate the document structure in some way. Now, when they say manipulating documents, don't think Word document here. Think about an actual web page. All right, and as it says, this is normally done using the document object model. The document object model they define is a series of APIs for controlling HTML and styling information that makes heavy use of the document object. Web browsers are very complicated pieces of software with a lot of moving parts, many of which can't be controlled or manipulated by the developer using JavaScript. Notice many of which cannot be controlled or manipulated. All right, it says you might think of such limitations as a bad thing, but browsers are locked down for good reasons, mostly centering on security. That makes sense. Despite these limitations, web APIs give us access to a lot of functionality that enable us to do many things with web pages. All right. It says, consider the following diagram, which represents the main parts of a browser directly involved in viewing web pages. All right. So, as it says, you've got the navigator up here, you've got your window information up here with your address, etc., and then you've got the document. So it says the window is the browser tab that a web page is loaded into. It is represented in JavaScript by the window object. You use methods available on this object to do things like return the window's size using inner width and inner height, manipulate the document loaded into that window, store specific data to that document on the client side, attach event handlers, etc. The navigator represents the state and identity of the browser, also known as the user agent. All right, in JavaScript, this is represented by the navigator object, and there's a lot of things that you can do with this. So if I right mouse click on here and open this, where it opened it, I guess right here. So here's some of the properties that you have. Now, why is this important? Well, most of the time you wouldn't do anything this extreme, but when you think about it, with a navigator, you can get all sorts of information from the user. All right. And maybe you want to find out, a lot of things about what the user, returns the user agent for the current browser. All right. It asks browsers to provide as little information via this field as possible. In Firefox, well, whatever. It says here, user agent equals navigator.userAgent. And if you did that, it's going to come back and show you something like this. All right, why would you care? Well, you might care both what browser the user was using and the version of that browser. All right, because you might want to provide different things or show different things to somebody depending on the type of browser they have and or depending on the type of on the version that they have. All right, so we looked quickly at the window and the navigator, and the other one is the document itself. And as mentioned here, the document represented by the DOM and browsers is the actual page loaded into the window and represented by JavaScript in JavaScript by the document object. In this article, we'll focus mainly on manipulating the document, but show a few other useful bits besides. All right. The document currently loaded into your browser tab is represented by a document object. So this is one, this is one, this is one, etc. So you can see what's going on in here. This is a tree-like representation created by the browser that enables the HTML structure to be easily accessed by programming languages, such as JavaScript. Here they've created a simple example page at domexample.html. Try opening this up in your browser. It is a very simple page with a section element where you can find an image in a paragraph. All right. So let's go and grab the code here. There it is. Now, looks like we're going to need this dinosaur image, which we do not have. So let's see what it looks like without that image. All right. So there it is. And again, we don't have this, so it probably is just going to say this. All right, we've looked at this example or one darn close to it previously. If I bring up and double click, I think it's this one here. Yeah, see, we're getting the error message because we don't have that. All right. Now, I don't know if they're going to show it to us in here or not. But let's just we'll grab a picture from Google Images. All right, we'll just grab this one right here. I'd like to have a little better one. That's not bad. And we want to save the image as dinosaur.jpg. All right, now if we look at this and refresh, well, I thought that was it, but let's see. Oh, it's a ping. You wouldn't normally do what I'm about to do, but it'll be fine. I guess I didn't even save it correctly, so let me try to resave it. Let's see if we can find one that actually is a JPEG. There's one. dinosaur.jpg, and we'll save that to the desktop. There it is. All right, now when we refresh, still not getting it, of course not. Oh, I want it to be a pig. Okie dokie. Let's go back to the one that we had previously. There. All right, now, boom, there it is. Okay. There it is live. So they used a different thing. We could grab this one. We could save the image as it's dinosaur. We'll call it dinosaur.ping. We'll overwrite the one that's in there, which will take our document and make it look like this. And if I blew it up, it's going to, that one and this one. Now look the same. Okay? All right. Now, when we built this, this also got created. This is the DOM. This is the document object model that got created. Now, the first thing to realize on here is basically this doc type has no meaning in the DOM. At least in my opinion, it doesn't. everything, the grand poobah, so to speak, the thing in charge is the HTML. And the HTML has two direct descendants, head and body. Head has some text, then a meta, and some text, then a title, which is made up of text, then more text, etc. You get the idea. And you can see what the body has as well. All right. It says you can see that each element and bit of text has its own entry. Each one of these things in here is referred to as a node. You will encounter other various terms to describe the type of nodes that are in there. All right, element nodes, root nodes, so the HTML is a root node. Child nodes, which is a node inside of another node. So again, there's a child node that's inside of that node, etc. Descendant nodes, a node anywhere inside of another node. All right, parent nodes, siblings, etc. So you can see there's a whole hierarchical structure in here. It is useful to familiarize yourself with this terminology before working with a DOM. As a number of code terms you'll come across make use of them. All right. Now, to start with learning about basic DOM manipulation, it says, let's start with a simple example. All right, let me check my time here. And I'm doing fine. All right, it says, take a local example of the DOM example HTML page, which was this one. It's the one I've got, that I'm just running it with a different name. Add a script element just above the closing body tag. To manipulate the element inside of the DOM, you need to first select it and store a reference to it. Well, we've done things like this before. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to come back into here. And right before the ending body tag, we're going to put in a script tag, beginning and ending script tag. And then in here, we will put in that. All right. And that will allow us to do what? It'll allow us to create a variable in our JavaScript program that goes through our document, and it'll find the first example of an A tag, which is right there. So it's going to allow us to manipulate that, or to potentially manipulate that. Now we have the element reference stored in a variable, so we can start to manipulate it using properties and methods available to it. These are defined on interfaces like anchor element in the case of an A tag and other ones. Add the following line below the previous one. We should also change the URL the link is pointing to so it doesn't go to the wrong place when it is clicked on. Add the following line again and again at the bottom. Now, what have we done? Well, let's check by running the program again. So there it is. And if we click on there, we should be going to the Mozilla developer homepage, which we are. All right. Note that as with many things in JavaScript, there are many ways to select an element and store a reference to it. Document.Queryselector, all right, which is what we used up here, is the recommended approach. It's convenient because it allows you to select elements using selectors. The above query selector will match the first A element that it finds. If you wanted to match all of them and do things with multiple elements, you could use query selector all, which, as it says, matches every element that's listed there. And it gives them back in an array-like structure that's called a node list. All right, there are a few older methods available for grabbing references as well. I mean, I've used document.GetElementById for a long time. All right, and what that means is in your HTML, any element that you might want to be able to manipulate programmatically using JavaScript, you would give it an ID. Notice by using this, it's the E in element is capitalized, the B in by, and just the I in ID. Two things quickly to notice here. First, it's not get elements by ID, it's get elements, so it's singular in what it returns. The second is a mistake people oftentimes make is they put the ID both in caps. Just the D is capitalized. There's also a thing by tag name. So if I wanted to return all paragraphs, all anchor tags, etc., you can use that. It says these two work better in older browsers than the modern methods like Queryselector, but are not as convenient. All right. So let's just stop right here because we're at 15 minutes and we'll pick it up in the next lecture.